welcome to Oxford History Today. I'm your host, Ron Brock, and today we're going to be interviewing a person who has a lot of knowledge on the history of Lake Orion. As you know, the Northeast Oakland Historical Society covers not only Oxford, but the area around it, of the small villages around us, and Lake Orion is certainly one of them. So without further ado, I will interview Miss Riva Beatty. She operates a boat tour around Lake Orion and has a lot of great information on the history of the cottages and homes around Lake Orion. Hi, Riva.
Hi, Ron.
Welcome to the show.
See you again.
Come on in, sit down.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm excited to have you on the show today. I so much enjoyed your tour that we took that I wanted our audience to hear a little bit about it and get them interested in it.
Okay.
Lake Orion has got quite a history. I know back in its day it was really a vacation spot. People used to come up from Detroit on the DUR, the trolley, spend the day out on the island amusement park, go back to the train station on the boat, and then go back to Detroit. And there's a lot of neat old cottages around Lake Orion, I know. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about the history of Lake Orion?
Well, Lake Orion actually started out as about 5 or 6 lakes, and in the early 1800s they built a dam and flooded all 5 or 6 lakes and turned it into one large body of water. And it wasn't until the late 1800s when they had the railroad and the interurban streetcar coming up that it became a summer vacation spot. And they utilized that with putting all kinds of launches and ferry boats on the lake that would whisk you off to your cottage for the weekend. And we had hotels and an amusement park and with all kinds of rides and games and things for people to do and see.
Yeah, I happened to hear a program here a few years back where a gentleman was talking about delivering mail around Lake Orion.
Oh, yeah.
That the roads around the lake itself were so rough that during the summertime or when the water was open, they would deliver mail by boat.
Yes.
And you would have your mailbox sitting on a dock out in front of your cottage. So that was kind of interesting, too. When the DUR was running up from Detroit, I know the train station, I think, was pretty much around Green Park, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right next to the marina.
Yes.
Okay.
That was considered like the main landing area.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they had a little cafe and a small hotel and a boat livery that rented out about 100 boats a day.
Wow.
And, but yeah, that's where the main spot where you would get off the train. That was the first stop.
On the island where the amusement park was there a hotel there, or did people stay on the island, or were the hotels on the mainland, if you will?
There was several hotels around Lake Orion. There was one in downtown Lake Orion, the Park Hotel. There was the Lakeside Hotel on Bellevue, and there was also the Bellevue Hotel, or known as the Assembly Hotel. So there were several hotels around the lake, but not on Park Island itself.
Not on the island itself, okay.
No, they had a couple buildings for living quarters for the people that worked on the park, at the amusement park, but not like a hotel, so to speak.
Gotcha. Do you have any idea how many people stayed on the island that worked there at all?
No, unfortunately that's the only thing. There's not really any record. They would just tell you how many train trips or trolley, how much the trolley would come up from Detroit. It would take about 5 or 6 trips a day, bringing thousands of people to Lake Orion.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine today, isn't it?
Right.
It's quiet like Oxford is now. It's hard to imagine it being a vacation spot or whatever.
Yep, exactly.
The roads that came up here from Detroit, that would be M24. Any thoughts on that? Was that paved, or was it all dirt, mud, or what was it?
Oh, of course it was dirt and mud.
Dirt and mud, yeah.
Yeah. But I believe they just had the train and the trolley tracks for a long time. Through the 30s is when the trolley service stopped.
In
about
the 30s?
1930.
Okay, yeah. And I know you're on your tour, you've got quite a history of the cottages around there. Could you tell us maybe just a little bit about one or two of them so that our audience can understand what your tour is all about?
Well, let's see. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of original cottages left on the lake. Maybe about 40, 45 cottages that are original, or have been rehabbed and restored. One happens to belong to our family. It's known as the Darling Cottage. It was built in the about 1880.
Okay.
It's the oldest home on Lake Orion, and hopefully someday we'll get to add that to the tour.
No, that would really be cool.
Yeah.
That would really be cool. Someplace I heard that one or two of the cottages was haunted, if you will.
That's the cottage I'm talking about.
That's the one?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I thought I remembered that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I actually used to live there when I got out of college, and the roommates kept changing, and I didn't know why until a few years later they told me that the house scared them. So I always knew that it was a little active, but it didn't bother me. So.
Okay.
But we've had paranormal teams come through, and I think that the more it sits and it's not loved, I think that the worse the activity gets. So
The spirits get angrier. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. That's cool. I know.
if you believe in that sort of thing.
If you
of
believe
course.
in that kind of stuff. Yeah, you hear a little bit of around Oxford here also.
Right.
Just recently there was a couple young ladies came in and telling us they saw spirits out by the trailer park out there on Lakeville Road, so that's another story. Let's get back to Lake Orion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the boats that went back and forth, the ferries, were they individuals doing it just for extra income? Were there companies that ran the boats, or?
Well, the double-decker ferry boat had like an orchestra band, and that was definitely a business.
Okay.
For 10 cents, you could ride the ferry boat all day, and it had about 12 or 13 stops around the lake that it would drop you off, and they advertised them as being like picnic excursions.
Oh, okay.
And they would drop you off to certain parts of the lake and let you off for a while, and then they'd pick you back up, or you could get back on the boat and go back around the lake. And then there was other passenger launches that would just take you where you needed to go around the lake.
Sort of like a water taxi then.
Yeah,
Okay.
almost like that. There was a system too with being able to flag those taxis down, so to speak. They had you had a mailbox at the end of your dock to collect your mail. And there was two flags. There was one for outgoing mail, and then one big flying flag to let the water taxi know that you needed a ride into town, and they would pick you up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah. I know, just trying to remember bits and pieces about what that gentleman was talking about when he talked about the mail delivery on the lake. One of the cottages was a bunch of sorority girls.
Yes, yes.
And they had a good-looking mailman at the time, so he always had a free lunch when he visited their
Yes.
dock to deliver the mail.
Yep, he said it was his favorite house to visit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think they also said that his most difficult delivery was for a kitchen stove, a big kitchen stove, if I remember right. And I can imagine trying to push that around in a rowboat. That would be pretty hard.
Right.
Maybe when we come back from the break, we'll take a look at a few of the photos that we have here on display in the museum, and a couple that you have, and
Yeah.
we'll see what else we can find out.
All right, sounds great.
Riva's bought some nice photographs with her, and we'll let her show us the photographs, and we can explain a little bit about what they're depicting.
Okay, great. Well, I always like to show the railroad map or the trolley map that came up from Detroit to kind of show people where it actually went. There was several trolleys, and this one bringing it up to Orion and Oxford here, and it actually went all the way to Flint. But for $1 round trip, you could take this trolley.
Okay, yep, and that's the DUR we're talking about. Yep. All right.
And probably one of my favorite old photos that I've come across in my search for Lake Orion postcards. This one shows you, it's almost like a coming soon sign, and this is in the main landing area, and there's almost nothing that has developed here yet. You can actually see the ferry boat going across to Park Island here. And it says Lake Orion, 1,700 acres of water, 21 islands and peninsulas, which I'm not sure how they measured back then, but that's way off. The summer resort town, $1,500 program, or I'm sorry, $5,000 program, free on Assembly Island, picnic and amusement grounds on Park Island, and over 100 summer homes and room for many more. There's about 900 summer homes now.
Really? Wow, that's quite a few.
Yep, lots for sale, easy terms, and then it just lists the Lake Orion Power Company and Improvements Company. So you can see the railroad and the trolley line here going across. This is which is now M24, and this is now Greens Park.
Oh, okay.
To give you a perspective of what we're looking at. And if you look real close, you can see the gazebo here out on the point that's very popular. You can see in the back of Greens Park, which is still there today.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay.
Neat photo.
And then this shows you the back of the main landing, and this is what soon developed. This was the early 1900s, but it shows you that boat livery that I was talking about that has about, they rented about 100 boats a day. Keep in mind they were launches or small canoes that only sat 2 people, but also this is where the ferry boat would come and pick you up from this large pavilion that you could sit underneath and wait. And they had a boat, just a little cafe here that you could get something to eat at, and then there was a little hotel here that had about 12 rooms.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's it for the back of the main landing.
Did your boat livery then become where the marina is today?
Yes, this is part of what is now Orion Marine.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Yeah, just to give people a perspective of what we're looking at here and where it's located.
This is the back of Greens Park. So this would be shot like taken from the gas dock, looking back at Greens Park.
Okay. Yeah.
And I do have this photo on display in CJ's Sandbar in downtown Lake Orion, and it's quite large, but if you take a real close look, you can see the top of the Park Hotel here in the trees, and that's actually what is now the Veerwood Apartments.
Okay.
So that shows you how long that building's been there.
Been there a while, that's for sure.
Late 1800s, so. And this is just another perspective. This would be looking from Park Island back towards the downtown Lake Orion area. These 2 big buildings were our ice houses that would harvest ice out of the lake in the wintertime. And we had our grist mill and dam over here. And you can actually even see the top of the church, or I'm sorry, the school for Elizabeth Street. That's off Elizabeth Street.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then this is the steeple for the Methodist church that is in downtown Lake Orion. So, and makes this boat look real large, makes Lake Orion look very big. So, I like that one too. And then this is the one that we were talking about earlier. My summer cottage growing up belongs to our family, the Darling Cottage. This photo was taken at about 1900, and I'm not real sure if these colors were accurate or if they were added onto a black and white photograph after the fact. But the it's really interesting actually. The water line actually comes up past these rocks now. So some of this walkway is actually now in the water. But there's actually a pathway that goes around this point, and it's called Darling Drive.
Okay.
But this house was built in about 1880. And this is part of our gas dock boathouse right here. We actually, most of this is in the water now, and there's no porch here. But this is part of our shed or gas dock boathouse
I see.
for Orion Marine. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so when you come on my tour, each passenger, this is just like a small part of all the photos that you'll see. I travel all over the state to go to these postcard shows to find rare photographs of Lake Orion, and I went to school for graphic design, so once I get these photos, I scan them and I Photoshop them, I bring them back to life. But these are some books that I made for all the passengers on board that you can actually view. Each photograph kind of goes with, I time it around the lake so that what we're talking about, everybody's looking at the same pictures and nobody's falling behind.
Gotcha, okay.
So, and everybody can see, and I'm pretty good at projecting myself over the waves and any boat traffic that's on board. So can you see that okay? So, but these are just, again, a small little collection of all the photos that you see on the boat tour. So
yeah, these are photos of some of the hotels that we were talking about earlier.
yeah. Yeah. So but that's about it.
Yeah,
And this is Park Island, and
this one must be the entrance when you come on the boat, when you get onto to get into the amusement park.
right.
Yeah, okay.
And not like most entrances to a park. You actually, that was half the fun, was you actually got onto a ferry boat and you got, the entrance to the park was actually in front of the lake. So,
on the water, yeah.
So
Oh,
you
that would be
actually
pretty
enter
cool.
the boat, or enter the park through the boat. So. But you hear all kinds of fun stories, and the best part about my tours is I've really had the experience of meeting some people from that time period that give me stories, and I've recorded them and taken really good notes to pass these stories on to everyone.
Okay, yeah, good. So you really got some firsthand knowledge of what what the amusement park was like.
Right.
And what the trip over there was like. That's really some interesting information.
Right. Yeah.
Fortunately, we don't have a lot of that.
Right.
But we enjoy hearing that. We've got some photos here in the Museum of Lake Orion and just a couple of the amusement park, which we'll look at a little bit later. I was wondering though, on your boat tour, I'm trying to remember just bits and pieces, and my memory's not that good anymore, but there were a couple notable people that had cottages around the lake or visited cottages around the lake. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the most prominent person I think in Lake Orion was John Winter. He had a home on what they called the Winter's Point, or the Point of Comfort. And it sat on 7 lots of land, and it kind of sits right in the middle of the lake.
Oh, wow.
And he was kind of responsible for setting this summer resort town. He purchased most of the land around the lake, and he divided up the lot lines. And he had a summer homes company that proposed that he could build you a cottage in 10 days, and they were doing it.
Oh, wow.
And they weren't permanent homes, but they were cheap. And these summer cottages were going up quickly. But it was, you know, he saw the opportunity with the railroad and really started to develop the lake here. So.
Well, that's great. Well, let's take a break, Riva, and we'll come back and look at some more photos that we have in the museum.
All right, great.
Don't miss what's going on in your local government meetings. Watch Elgin Nichols and Dave Kinney on Minutes by Minute. Airs Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and 11:30 p.m., where they add a touch of humor to local politics.
Okay, Riva, let's go over and take a look at the photos that we have here, and maybe you could tell us a little bit more information about them than we know already.
All
So
right.
let's go over and
Sounds
take a
like
look.
fun.
Yeah.
I love old photos.
Here we are, Riva. We've got a couple things up here. This is a nice photo. We were talking about the landing area for the ferries, and the DUR tracks are there. That's the entranceway, I guess you'd call it. There's a train station over there for the Michigan Central, and there's the Michigan Central tracks over there on the other side of the road.
Right.
The other thing that we have on display here is this was a megaphone that was used on the Orion Queen in the early 1900s. Of course, they didn't have the electric foghorns or whatever you want to call them, megaphones. So it was one that just kind of projected your voice out, and that was the reason for that cone shape. Here's the photos that we have here on display in the museum. A lot of these are postcards, and some are just photos. So if you will, oh yeah, here's one here. We talked about the ice house that we had on Lake Orion, and this is what the inside of it looked like. We have a good time with that when we bring the school kids through here. Trying to explain to them, okay, no electricity, how did you keep stuff cold?
Right.
Ice box, okay, where did the ice come from? And we get a lot of these, you know.
Right.
And then when you tell the kids that you got your ice off of the lake or off of a river, they say, ew, where fish swim, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of the responses that we get. But anyhow, if you would go ahead and explain some of these photos and what they really are.
Okay, I'll start up here at the top. This looks like the landing at Park Island, looking back towards downtown Lake Orion or the main landing area. And you'll see the arches in the photo there. And it looks like some of the original arches, because they had two different stages of these arches. These ones look a little bit thinner.
Okay.
So this looks a little bit older of a photo. Same thing with this. This is just a black and white photo. There's two different types of Michigan postcards, and some of them are called Michigan Real Photos or Real Photographs, and that would be this black and white or sepia tone one.
Okay.
And then this one here looks like the roller coaster. I notice, and I know this because there's I have the copy of this too. I think it was about 5 cents to ride the roller coaster. And then these arches, this is a very popular photograph. Lake Orion has several postcards and photos, and it's on the front of our Lake Orion history book of those big, beautiful white arches that said the summer homes and amusements on the side there. You've got the little cafe, and you can see the little pavilion where people could sit on these park benches and wait for their ferry boat or their launch to come and swoop them up for the weekend. This is a Romance Castle on Romance Island out on the other side of the lake, just in front of Victoria Island.
Okay.
So this looks like the big carousel that they had at Park Island. I believe John Winter purchased this for $12,000. And all the horses were handcrafted out of wood and had real horsehair for the tails. And the operator, which if you look real closely, there's a copy of this in the Lake Orion history book too. If you look real closely, the man standing in the middle is the operator. He was Italian, and he only allowed Italian opera music to be played while it was in operation. So just funny little facts. Here's another one of the arches at Park Island at the amusement park. And if you look real closely, you can see the point in the background with that gazebo in the background once again. And this is a much later photo, probably in the 30s. You can see the roller coaster in the background, back when they were allowing cars to come on the island.
Oh, okay.
And cars were becoming more popular. So that was another way that you could get on the island later on. Then the double-decker ferry boat, this was probably the city of Orion, I believe, and this one is, it's got a banner on the side of the boat. It says pleasure rides, 10 cents, and this is that one that you could ride all afternoon.
Okay, yeah, that went all around the lake then. All right.
Yep. And over here we've got the roller coaster and a walking bridge that went over, which it would have been at the end of Algene Street, and that had a bridge that started to go over to Park Island. And another view of the arches at the main landing of Park Island. I see the train depot here. and the train coming up. This one looks to be like it's downtown. I'm not sure which streets that one is, but then several photos here of the Darling Cottage. That seemed to be a hot spot to really take pictures of a lake cottage and advertise Lake Orion with these postcards, because the Darling Cottage was one of the very first cottages built on the lake. In fact, it was definitely one of the first 6, but we've got it narrowed down to 2.
Well, it's such a pretty setting, though, if you take a look at it, up on a knoll or hill, if you will, coming down to the lake.
Exactly, and it was very easy to see. You could see it coming when you rode up by train or the trolley. It was really the first cottage that you would see coming into Lake Orion.
Okay.
This gray stone cottage here, I believe is still there today, which would be off of Heights Road and Sherry Drive. You can still see those concrete little cinder blocks. And I'm not sure which photo this is. This might be of the Auditorium on Bellevue Island, the back side of Bellevue Island. And it looks like a bridge going over to Bellevue. We were talking about this earlier, the sorority girls. Yeah, I think this was one of the sorority houses. It was called Oak Hollow.
Okay.
And the girls are stacked up or
on
goofing
stairs
around.
or something there. Yeah.
Being goofy to take a picture. So, and then this looks like the dance hall at Park Island. They had 3 dance halls in its lifetime.
Okay.
They kept burning down, and they had to keep rebuilding the dance halls. But that's one of them there. Dance halls was very popular. They had a penny night where you could dance all night for almost under a quarter.
Oh, wow.
You would actually pay a penny to go out on the dance floor and dance to a song.
Oh, okay.
So, another one of Darling Cottage here, or Darling's Cove, and then just another one of the ferry boat coming up. But nice collection.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I found a couple other things that we had downstairs.
Okay.
And here's a photo of the downtown area. It's the A&P store.
Okay.
Right here, which I think they said was built in like 1881. And here's the drugstore on this corner.
Yeah, and it looks like Murray's. Was that an auto parts store or
I'm not sure what
a general
that was.
store?
I'm not sure what that was.
Okay.
The interesting thing is, if you take a look at this automobile,
Right.
Wow, what a design. And this photo was taken right before the war. It was like 1941, sometimes in there. So that's really indicative of the style of automobile they were producing at that time. That's pretty interesting. And this is just another advertisement for their decoration day, or what am I trying to say? Decoration day, May 30th. Yeah.
Okay. So they had some type of hot air balloon ride, it looks like?
Oh, yeah, and that was conducted by Professor Stewart.
Okay.
And then we had some life-saving exhibition by another professor. So they had a lot of professors at that time.
Okay.
And so it's just something kind of interesting that they took place. And again, this was like 1916. So this is even before World War I.
Okay.
It's really been a pleasure to have you here, Riva.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm sure the audience has learned a lot, as I have. And we hope to see you again.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
So from next time, this is Ron Brock saying goodbye, and we'll see you next program.
Hi, I'm Connie from Connie's Kitchen here on OCTV, which is channel 99 on AT&T and 191 on Charter. Join us here on OCTV, join me in Connie's Kitchen, and learn to have fun in the kitchen, to relax and enjoy yourself. Come on, what'll it hurt? You'll have a good time.